Hi, this is Fred Copestake, your host to the Selling Through Partnering Skills podcast. Based on the book, the podcast explores how sales professionals can use the power of partnering intelligence to take their selling to the next level. By combining the skills associated with better partnering and existing best practice, salespeople can ensure their approach is more modern and collaborative. There are 6 elements to PQ, and in each episode we look at how sales professionals have used these and how their insights can contribute to your success. Hello and welcome to this episode of Selling Through Partnering Skills, where I'm joined by George Brontén, who is the founder and CEO of Membrane. Now, Membrane, I think, is a really fascinating product because it's a CRM that will really help salespeople in their approach to selling. But I feel that I might just have upset George before he's even spoken, because he's going to say it's not a CRM, Fred, it's more to it. So, George, hello, and could you just get me straight on what Membrane is and does?
Yes, of course. And it's funny, though, because CRM is one of those words that salespeople might not like. It's a system you've been forced to use, and you don't really see the value in it a lot of times, I would say. So yes, we try to go beyond that. We sort of describe a CRM as the database, but then on top of the database, you need your tools. You need the right tools to do the job. So what we've done is really put the how of selling, of complex B2B selling, I should add, that's the focus, on how you sell. So it's very much about driving the right behaviors by having a visualized, informative, and actionable sales process divided into your workflows. So you can be in different modes. You can be in prospecting mode. So that's a workflow. You could be in opportunity management mode, pipeline mode. That's another focus. And you could be in growth mode, like how do I grow existing accounts, which is another workflow. So we're very much focused on the how, and guiding you and helping you and supporting you with the right tools.
Brilliant. Okay, so yeah, I will promise I'll drop the CRM and call it the tool, which is to help salespeople essentially get better at what they do and guide them in their day-to-day activities.
Yeah, and not just the salespeople, also the sales managers who are responsible for the growth of their people. So we talk a lot about coaching. We talk a lot about getting the right insights from the data that the system should be collecting. And with that information, you can then help and guide and coach your people. So it should also be a sales platform, if we should use that term instead of a CRM, is really about making sure that we codify our way of selling. Because I strongly believe that in this world we're in, how you sell is really your maybe your first and last differentiator, because products look the same, services look the same if you go surf people's websites, but the way you engage and the way you collaborate with clients is what will set you apart.
And this is where we are absolutely on the same page, which is why I'm so pleased that you've taken the time to join us, because I think as part of that codification and that sort of best practice, we can really pull in these elements of partnering skills of PQ. And I just want to pick your brains on your thoughts around each of those parts. Now, whether that's how Membrane would do it, how you think of it, or just whatever, it's about just what do you think around each of these? The area that I always start with in these kind of conversations is the element of trust. Trust is a key part of all relationships, of communication. So again, over to you, your thoughts on trust in selling and how salespeople can get better at it, if you like.
Yeah, I think trust is the foundation for any relationship, really. And in its simplest form, I think trust is something you earn, right? If you promise you will do something, you do it. Then you earn trust. If you promise you will be there at a certain time and you're late, you lose trust. So it's kind of it's something you build over time. And of course, you can also build it, like in our day and time, social media is big, right? So if you if you can contribute with insights and information like you are doing to your customer base, that also earns you trust. Like, this person is knowledgeable, this person is curious, passionate, interested. I can trust that. I think that builds trust as well. But I do think we have to realize that without trust, we're not going to get anywhere. And there is I read, I can't remember the author, but there was an equation, trust equation, I remember, which I found interesting, and how he had a denominator of self-interest. Like, even if you're really providing a lot of value, or you're doing the right things, and you have a good relationship with the other person, if it comes across that you're just doing this in your own self-interest, then trust will be eroded. I thought that was a good point he made, that you really need to be in it for the win-win. You have to help the other person or company or team to actually achieve what they want to achieve, not just what you want to achieve. And when that comes across, you gain trust.
Okay, so I know exactly the equation you're talking about. It's David Maister, and he's a professor at Harvard. So yeah, it's no surprise that but it's such an elegant way that saying you can do all these good things, but ultimately, if that self-orientation is wrong, that pulls all those down. It's brilliant. You know, I'm not surprised that you like that. And so you've actually moved me on to the next subject straight away, which is about being in it for the win-win.
Yeah.
Again, let's just explore, and I'd like your ideas on what that kind of win-win orientation means to you in selling.
Yeah. I use the word alignment a lot for that. I think we're not in sales. We're not just in it for the client. Of course, we also want to sell our services and products. But if we're just in it to sell our products and services, well, it's not going to be good. So we need to be able to have a situation where we are aligned, meaning that you can contribute to what the customer is seeking to accomplish, or the pain they want to move away from, to use standard sales language, or the outcome they want to achieve. And once you know that, and you feel and know that you can contribute to that, then you find alignment. But without that alignment, there will be no win-win, right? So that's how I sort of think about win-win in my head. How can we align? And you talk about partnership. I think in a partnership, we are really collaborating. We go beyond. I think in the best partnerships, at least, we are working as a team towards an outcome or a goal or result. And we have some kind of agreement that we will continue working together until we have achieved this goal. I think also sometimes you sell stuff, or salespeople sell, and that's the end of it. And you don't really care if this helps them achieve whatever they achieved. You may not even have figured out what it is they are trying to accomplish with your component of the puzzle, in the worst of cases.
Yeah, no, it's funny. And again, you giggled, and I think I giggled at the same time when you talk about pain, to use standard sales language. Yeah, because there's a whole load of gain that could be there as well, and I think people sometimes do forget that, don't they?
Yeah, and it's funny. I was at a training many years ago, an NLP course, training actually, in neuro-linguistic programming, and they were talking about, our motivational factors, what drives us, and that we're different. Human beings are not the same. So some people are very much motivated by getting away from a pain, so to speak. Some are more motivated by achieving something. And I think Daniel Kahneman in his book wrote about this, that is usually 2x more motivational to get away from pain than achieving an outcome. But of course, if you can both help someone get away from a situation they're not comfortable in, and help them get to this new, I mean, then you have the best of both worlds. So you have to try to combine those things.
It is. So combine the towards and the away from motivation, and we've got something really strong to talk about.
Yes.
And, you know, I've noticed, you can see me making notes here. You've used the word outcome a number of times, and I know I suspect that's not accidental at all.
No, I think it's something we, in our society in general, we're very short-sighted, and we need to become better at really understanding where we are going. I mean, more long-term. And once you have an agreed upon outcome, then everything else just falls in place, or can fall in place, I should say, because then you know how to align, and then you know what to do, and then who needs to do what. But I feel that we are in sales, oftentimes we're so hungry to get the sale that we're happy that we find an outcome, but it may not be the outcome. So then we just want the sale, instead of really going deeper with the client. Like, okay, this is one of the outcomes you're seeking to. What's the bigger picture here? Where are you going? Why are you? What's your bigger initiative? Because without an outcome, you'll be it's all going to be a lot of shooting from the hip.
How interesting. So in some ways we're saying, even someone who's selling pretty well, as in, yeah, I found an outcome, I've got something, let's work on it. If I'm hearing you right, saying, well, just wait, just calm down and just explore further, because there's potentially something even bigger, even better, that can deliver greater value if you just look a little bit further, rather than kind of rushing on to try to sort it out straight away.
Yes, and I was on a panel yesterday. We were talking about account growth and account planning and how to grow existing customers. And one of the panelists said that they don't even sell to a client who does not want to explore the sort of business outcome of working together. And I thought that was pretty tough. Of course, this was Decision Link was the company who phrased this, and their entire product is about building a business case for what you're selling. So it makes sense that they do as they say. But I reflected on that, and I think it is very, I would say, from my experience, it's very uncommon that this is the case. And when it's not the case, let's say let's take CRM as an example. I think that's maybe an interesting example. The company says, we want to buy a CRM. So they contact companies like ours and others in Salesforce, and they sort of start with that buying process. And when we ask them, so what do you want to accomplish with the CRM? Well, the usual. Okay, what does that mean, the usual? Well, we want to have control and the repository information and single source of truth and all that, blah, blah. But okay, but what are the financial outcomes? What's the business results you're seeking to accomplish? They can't even answer the question. Like, are you seeking to improve win rates? Are you gonna speed up your sales cycles? Are you gonna increase sales effectiveness in any shape or form? Yeah, we're hoping to do that. Oh, you're hoping to do that, but do you have any goals in place? I mean, is that something you've defined? No, we haven't thought about it like that. We just need a CRM. So sometimes the clients don't really know what you could help them achieve. And then I can't say we're the world champions in this ourselves. It's easy to just go with the flow and say, okay, we'll sell you ours, we'll show you the bells and whistles, and hopefully you buy our stuff. But if you don't have that business outcome, you have no outcome to steer towards. So it's very easy that you become very reactive once you've sold whatever you've sold. And the customer comes back and says like, well, you know what? It doesn't really provide us the value. Okay, which value? Well, the value. Compared to what?
The value. Oh, okay.
We didn't really define a business result. You just wanted the stuff we were selling. So unless we have that defined, I think it's really easy for the sales team and the customer success team and the company as a whole to come into a very reactive mode. Sorry
How
about
interesting.
that rant, but
No,
yeah.
no, it's probably because you can see I'm scribbling away here, third sheet of paper, and but what you're talking about actually is, yes, we talk win-win. You've naturally taken us into talking about collaboration, which for me is almost like the PQ element is interdependence. We're kind of in this together, but you've talked about, well, let's collaborate better. Let's actually say, no, we don't want to work with you if we can't, because we don't think we can do this properly. But if you will work with me like that, I can massively give you value that we both agreed on. Yeah, that is an outcome that we can do. So actually, you moved into the second question without me even asking it, which is pretty cool. and to be fair, you also started talking about the future orientation element of PQ, which is, if I just take you back, you said sometimes, I think you even said society's a little bit short-sighted, and we jump on things and try to do it rather than say, let's just, again, slow down a little bit so that we can look further ahead to really work out what are we actually trying to do here.
Yeah, slow down to speed up.
Well, I love that. I love that as a phrase, and so what you're talking about is, even if you don't know PQ as partner intelligence, when you start talking about sort of modern selling and what would make people effective, you're naturally talking about these things that I'm trying to highlight with people, and we're trying to help them to do even more consciously.
Yeah.
So
it's hard. I mean, we're talking about these as best practices, right? And then when you get out in the real life, it's of course quite difficult to reach this level of trust, which is needed to get them to share their initiatives. What are they really working on as a company that you could latch onto and help them achieve? It's easy to get stuck in sort of the very operational nitty-gritty on a too low level, I think, as a sales person, and that's what we need to go beyond if we want to sell more on value.
So move it up the organizational tree. Is that how I'm understanding there?
Yeah, it all depends on what we're selling, right? Because sometimes when I speak about these things, I critique myself for making it sound more complicated than it needs to be. So it depends on what you sell, right? If you're selling something simple, don't take the advice to make this a super strategic conversation if it doesn't have to be. But if we're in my world, and our clients are in the complex B2B sales world, so their offerings, their solutions, their products are usually at, or they want to be at, that partnership level where they get sort of ingrained in their customers' business. And in order to get there, of course, you need that trust, and you need that insight into their company, their industry, their world, to be able to align and create that win-win.
It's a weird piece of advice, but what you're saying is sell at the right level. Okay, but what is the right level? Well, it depends on the value, as you say. So, I mean, I get quite frustrated when I see this: sell at C-suite, sell to C-suite, go to C-suite. Maybe it depends. Are you doing something that is going to float their boat, or if it is more operation tactical? Nothing wrong with that, but just make sure you're speaking to the right people who will give you the time of day. And as you say,
it also depends if you're selling a disruptive product, or if you're selling something that is more sort of mainstream, but you have a uniqueness in your approach, or in your competitive or in the USPs. I mean, we find ourselves, like you started saying, I don't think you like this because I called membrane a CRM, right? And that's because we're trying to do things a little bit differently in this space. We have to always sort of get people to see how this is different. And that, I think, for us resonates more at a higher level, right? If we can talk to the leaders of a company and convince them that if you would codify your way of selling and get all your salespeople, all your managers to actually do the right thing all the time, it's going to be make a massive impact on your bottom line. That resonates. But we can also, and we have competitors who've made a real impact in this world by talking to the salespeople and saying, hey, we've got a tool for you, helps you, makes your life easier. And that's successful as well. Maybe more successful even than we've been. So it's not always that you should sell to the C-level. Sometimes you have to you have to know what you're selling and to whom you're selling and what your strategy is.
Absolutely, and that is a far more eloquent answer of selling at the right level. It's to what your strategy is and what will make sense for them.
Right.
So while we're talking about, so we're going through these elements, talked about win-win, we've talked about the future orientation, we've talked about interdependence, trust. One of the other elements of partnering skills is self-disclosure and feedback. So it's giving a bit of information, but often giving information about somebody else. So in this case, where salespeople will be about the customer, about the partner, say. I'd love your thoughts on that and how salespeople can maybe get better at it, or maybe an area they don't do so well. I don't know. I'm happy to.
Yeah, no, I think we underestimate the skills we have as salespeople. If I go to that sort of role, because if we are selling to a certain type of customers, we are engaging with a lot of these customers. Whereas the customer you're selling to right now might just buy what they're buying from you once every third year or fifth year or even more rarely. So the insights you have about other companies and best practices is really very, very valuable to them, but you might not, the salesperson might not really realize it because it's what he or she does every day. So it's that, you know, in our minds, we believe that all the people know what we know. That's how we sort of the lens through which we see the world. So I do think that salespeople have more value to contribute to their customers than they might think themselves. That goes beyond the product, right? The product that you're offering. It's really about what have other companies done similar to yours that has been successful and that you have helped them with. I get a lot of reach outs on LinkedIn from salespeople, and they some are really bad, of course, but some are also really good because they say something like, we help companies in your space. You know, this is the classic sort of reach out thing. So that you skip that part because everyone is saying the same. But what comes after that can be quite interesting. So I had someone reach out the other day, and they were experts in SEO, I think. And SEO is one of those things, search engine optimization, which is, it's broad, it's complex, it's moving around like crazy. So you never know really what's going on in that world. So they said something they phrased it very well. So I sort of felt, wow, these guys actually seem to know what they're talking about. And I should probably listen to them. So it's a pretty poor example because SEO is probably the most common one, and I'm a sucker for buying into that specific message. But the point is that you have more value that you can bring to customers than I think you believe.
Actually, I'd say it's a really good example because it's such a common area where you will receive loads of those. They've done something or said something or somehow given a bit of insight that's just piqued your attention and enough just to move it on a little bit further. Mm-hmm. You didn't sign up and buy it straight away off the back of a message, obviously. I think salespeople think that's going to happen, you know, need readjusting in their mind, but they've done something by just probably thinking, actually, maybe he doesn't know this. You know, the person reaching out to doesn't know. So, that's an interesting. That's an interesting angle on that. Actually, I'd not really thought about that. The sharing of insight. Just don't assume. I'm just trying to really capture this in the bullet point, if you like. Don't assume that people really are as expert in the stuff even that they're doing as you might think they are.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
better to assume that they're not.
Yeah.
And I guess this is sort of what challengers said a few years back when they were pushing the challenger methodology or idea, is that contribute with insights, and you have to think about what insights you may have because you're engaging with a lot of clients of the sort of clients you're talking to, and also when you listen to podcasts and webinars a lot, like I do, I'm sure you do too. I just love it when people are sharing an example from the real world. Like, oh, I had this workshop last week with salespeople, and we went through their pipeline, and this happened, and they said this, and I said this, and they said this. It's like real life stuff that is very, very valuable if you're in a role you want to learn as a manager, for instance. Or one guy told me about, I think it was in the waste industry, and they did a lot of research about the industry, and they found out what the major sort of problems in that industry was. So when they reached out, it was about that big problem that most had, which of course piqued the leaders in those companies' interests. Like, oh, is this have they cracked this problem? I want to hear what they've done on this and how they could help us. So figuring out, sometimes you can find out what the main problem in an industry is, and if you can solve that or help solve that, that should be sort of your spear in the communications. Not oh, we've helped this and this company to do X, we can help you with this, and it's very generic. It's not tied to something in their world. It's just going to be overlooked, right? But if it's really about a specific pinpointed issue in their industry, of course you have a much higher, I mean, the relevance goes up, and you have a much higher likelihood to pique some interest.
Yeah, so again, we were chatting just before we started recording, weren't we, about actually probably keeping it simpler, going back to basics. I think this is an issue, this is what we're seeing, we can sort it. And sometimes I wonder whether it is just almost so simple, or because you do this daily, you think, oh, that's not enough, is it? I need to make it bigger and grander, and you make it so complicated that actually nobody really understands what you're talking about anymore.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's like working out, right? Everybody knows if you want to lose weight, you eat healthier and you work out. It's not complicated really, but it's hard. It's hard work, so you have to do it. Same with selling. Sometimes I think we try to do things more complicated than it is, instead of doing the work. Or we try to not do the hard work by automating it and sending 1,000 emails with one click, because it's easy, right? You don't have to think, you don't have to work, you don't have to pick up the phone, but it's not gonna work. Just like you can't get a six-pack without working out.
Yeah, I don't know whether you saw, I don't know if it was this week or last week, there was an email doing the rounds as just a beautiful example of somebody tailoring something, where the guy who'd written it had picked up that the customer liked Harry Potter and had put somewhere in his profile that he was a Gryffindor or something like that. And he'd put in his email, I noticed that you're a Gryffindor, and as a Slytherin, we probably shouldn't be talking, but we've got this same thing we're trying to fight, or something like that. And it just, every little bit from like, that's clearly personalized, because you wouldn't have done that if you hadn't seen what I'd said. Naming the challenge, but putting in Harry Potter terms. And I think even about, well, let's get together and do some magic or something like it was. Maybe it wasn't that finished, but it was just brilliant.
It doesn't take that much. I mean, that's what I find interesting. Of all the emails I get and the LinkedIn messages I get, most are just not very good. They haven't spent that time, right? They just spam people, and they hope they will catch a fish with that wide net. And maybe they do, and they catch enough fish to survive. But those ones who are customized, and I've received a few lately, actually, more than I have in the last 12 months. I think I've had like 4 or 5 of those examples the last week alone. They've been customized they've referred to one of my blog posts or a press release, doesn't have to be more complicated than that. They instantly stand out. Even though I don't need their stuff, I appreciate the love they've put into it, and that's respectable. That earns me, that makes me trust them and their company so much more than these spammers that I'm so tired of it.
Yeah, it's draining. It's, oh, I'm interested to know more. Somebody came to me the other day and said, oh, I'm really interested to know more about selling through partnering skills. And I was tired and a bit grumpy. So I sent back, well, it's a book, buy it and read it. But maybe that's just, I'm not normally that rude. But yeah, it was just lazy. They pasted in that where they thought was the company name. So, but normally I'm a lot nicer. I'm a lot nicer person usually.
Right. Yeah, it was automated.
Yeah, it was, you know, I think I felt bad because I'd done that. So I said, look, and I gave a hint, which I suspect will be ignored. So if it is taken, then great. You know, I feel at least I feel better about myself. Hey, and it's all about.
Yeah.
Cool. Look, I mean, we're covering all of these elements, and it's fascinating. But I do have an eye on the clock, and the element we haven't really spoken about is comfort with change. But I guess we're talking about it anyway, because all this is involving the salesperson needs to change. The salesperson needs to help change, become something of a change agent. I don't know if you've got any sort of a short piece of it.
Yeah, no, I think a complex B2B sales is really all about change management. Someone is seeking to do something differently, and you're trying to help them do that, or you're trying to help them see that they need to do things differently from their status quo. So I think that's a good point, and we should all be reading change management literature, ADCAR and others. That it's really about that change management process to a big extent. I think salespeople, it's hard to generalize like this, but the problem is not so much, I hope, maybe that's how I should express it, that the salespeople are reluctant to change, although all people are to some extent, but the ability to coordinate or catalyst change. That is really, I mean, you said change agent. That's a good analogy or a good word for it. How do you become that change agent and how do you then coordinate and collaborate with your coach/ambassador to then get out to the rest of the organization, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So change is a big factor of this.
It's a podcast on its own. It's not even a podcast episode. It's a podcast on its own.
Yes.
But even if the salespeople are just aware, look, you are in this business. If you're in complex B2B, you are in the change business as much as anything else. So be aware of some of the models, some of the thinking, some of the stuff that you can do. And you guys are having a bit. Well, it's not a change, I guess. I'm just thinking about the new. Is it a change or is it an addition? Maybe this is change management psychology. If you talk to me about the new module in the new workflow.
Right. Yeah. So we've done some changes lately to both the product and the business model. One thing we did is we've sort of flipped the price model. So we say now, really what we believe is the value are the workflows and the tools you use in those workflows. So we charge for those, and we include the CRM database. So kind of flip the coin on pricing a bit. So saying that CRM as a database and a repository of information is free, because I mean, a database is a database is a database. However, the workflows and the tooling you need to be successful in your role is going to be different depending on what you do. And the first we did was opportunity management, pipeline management. This was 8 years ago. We then added the front of the pipeline piece, the prospecting piece, and now we're adding the account growth piece. And what's been fascinating with this is how, and these are my words, my thoughts, but I think companies just have a disproportionate, spend a disproportionate amount of time chasing new logos versus growing existing accounts and more. And this was why we sort of sped up this module. I didn't have it on the roadmap, or we didn't have it on the roadmap until later. But with COVID, we said, wow, this is going to be huge. It's going to be much more difficult for companies to recruit new logos. Hence, they will be forced to make sure that they don't lose customers and that they become better at growing what the customer base they have. And it's been super exciting, this whole designing this new module and the workflow and how it can be used, because we're in a world where we're getting into more and more subscription based, right? So yeah, you sell your service and offering, but then what? Are they successful using it? If they're not, they're gonna drop you and they're gonna go to someone else. So it's so important to do a good job in delivering what you promised. So big change, I guess. I mean, not from, we knew we were gonna add this module and this workflow. The change we made was just to prioritize it, and the feedback has been fabulous so far.
Brilliant. So how can people get in touch with you, or just start to look at where they can start to see some of this stuff? What's the best way to do that?
The best thing is to just connect with me on LinkedIn. So George Brontén, weird last name there. So there's only one of me when you search for my name. And yeah, I post a lot on LinkedIn. I blog. I have a book called Stop Killing Deals that might be interesting to read if you're into this kind of thing of B2B sales.
Cool. I will pop a I'll pop a link for your LinkedIn profile there.
Thanks.
And everything they can follow onto various areas off the back of that, but certainly the book, looking at the platform. There we go. Look, I've learned straight away. I've got it written down here.
Everyone wants a platform. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but the platform which is there to help salespeople. So absolutely, people can look at that. Look, I really appreciate your time, because I know with that launch and the stuff going on, you are a busy guy. But the stuff that you've been sharing, some of the thinking, it's really valuable. I think people are going to take a lot away from it.
Cool.
So thank you so much, George.
Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Selling Through Partnering Skills podcast with me, Fred Copestake. If you liked it, why not leave a review? If you didn't, also leave one. Remember, it's all about the feedback. If you want to learn more about your own PQ, why not go to the book website, which is www.throughpartnering.co.uk, and there you can take a little self-audit. And of course, if you want to get in touch to talk about how you can use partnering skills, you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So until next time, keep thinking about how you can adopt a more modern and collaborative approach to selling by selling through partnering skills.